Hello and welcome back to Putting It Bluntly. Today we're going to be looking at AEW All Out 2021. Now, as per usual with AEW pay-per-views, some of the die-hard fans have just gone absolutely batshit crazy, and they're claiming this is the best thing since sliced bread, but it's not. There were some good moments during the pay-per-view, some nice returns, but with the overall match-by-match quality, I wouldn't say it's the best thing ever. Again, the returns, the pops, the surprises, well, they weren't even surprises, so that's already dropped the quality slightly. But I did enjoy quite a lot of this show, despite there being a lot of buffer and a lot of sloppiness involved. First bit of sloppiness includes a 10-man clusterfuzz. We've got Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor, Wheeler Yuta and the Jurassic Express against Matt Hardy, Private Party and TH2. Thankfully this is on the pre-show. The pre-shows for AEW are a lot better than the WWE ones, I will give them that. The WWE ones take a lot of time with like this sports channel, shopping channel, panel, bollocks, and it's really fake and it takes you away from wrestling too far for too long. Booker T is very entertaining. With the AEW pre-show, they just showed all the hype packages and then gave us a match at the end. A much, much better way of setting the scene and getting us comfortable for a big show. And yeah, this did what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to get the crowd excited. We've just been 10 men just doing everything for 10 minutes or whatever. There's plenty of stupid spots. They rushed through everything. Nothing got a chance to settle, to soak in. And it just feels like people do stuff just because. Eventually, Jungle Boy made one of TH2 tap. I can't remember which one. I don't fucking care. It was just full of stupid bits like this. And yeah. It wasn't a wrestling contest. It was just 10 guys doing shit to each other. After the match, the Butcher returned and joined Matt Hardy's team. And they smashed Orange Cassidy down for a little bit. Well, then the faces emptied from the locker room to make the save. The Mark Order being at the front of them and just combining them with the Best Friends and Jungle Express on camera all at once, all hugging, was just too much. Vomit. Next. It was a nice hard-hitting match between Miro and Eddie Kingston for the TNT Championship. Kingston's promos are fantastic. Miro's brilliant now that he's got a bit serious and he's stopped playing silly video games and stopped being some bell end. But he's just an absolute animal now and he's defended that belt in the same manner each time. Kingston put up a bit more of a fight than Miro's encountered so far. I like how they've given Miro a weakness. Said that his neck/head hurts. So if he gets hit with a DDT, it's going to floor him quite hard. Kingston hit his spinning back fist and DDT'd Miro at one point for a close near fall, which the crowd loved. But then afterwards, the referee was slightly distracted from Miro turning him around. Miro hit Kingston with a low blow, kicked his head off, and retained his title. Now, props to Jon Moxley. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago on That's Not Wrestling that Jon Moxley happened to have a wrestling match on Rampage. I think it was because CM Punk was present and he wanted to put on his best behaviour. You know, because CM Punk will tell him that he knows better, or he should at least know better. So Moxley had a match that wasn't blood-filled and weapon-filled and didn't go to the outside instantly. It kept quite a lot of that standard for this match, I'm guessing with a bit of respect for Kojima. And then after a fairly decent traditional match, Moxley won. It wasn't bad, but there was no build, there was no interest for me. I think this was just a showcase for anybody that really enjoys Japanese wrestling. After the match, Jon Moxley showed his respect. Minoru Suzuki appeared and shocked Moxley. They had a bit of a scrap and they exchanged blows for a couple of minutes, no selling, and then eventually Suzuki just KO'd Moxley and left. We move on to the Women's Championship now, where Britt Baker takes on Miss Watch for a Botch, Chris Statlander. Now, the match was quite good for a Statlander, but it started off better. As soon as Fatigue came in, then it didn't look as polished as it started off as. But yeah, she got a bit sloppy again and the shine wore off once Fatigue settled in. I don't think there were any botches too drastic where anyone needed medical attention, which is a nice change. But then once they got to the end of the match, they just overkilled it anyway. Baker hit Statlander with her Pittsburgh Sunrise, which is obviously a nod to her husband Adam Cole's finishing move. That got a 2 count. She hit her with a stomp. That also got a 2 count, and then she got the lockjaw locked in, and the referee called it. That was a terrible finish compared to the 2 previous moves you'd seen. I don't understand why you'd finish with this, when you've got a nice impactful move like the curb stomp, or finishing somebody off with the Panama/Pittsburgh Sunrise, which is an impressive looking move. It wasn't the worst match either of these two have had. It certainly doesn't come close to something like Sasha Banks or a Bayley, or a Charlotte Flair, or a Rhea Ripley. But the main issue is, the fans are behind Baker, and the promo package that we saw before made Baker look like the face. But then people are cheering for Statlander because she's the face and Britt Baker's evidently playing the heel. So, it's just all over the spot. Next up, we're supposed to have Pac versus Andrade El Idolo, But that got changed, and Chavo Guerrero looks like he's just died inside because Andrade did not bring his subtitles with him this week, and nobody had a fucking clue what he was saying. I do believe the match has been put back to Rampage this Friday. Next up, we have a steel cage match for the AEW World Tag Team Championship between the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. This wasn't a bad steel cage match considering the participants. All four of these guys are known for not really understanding tag team wrestling. They know how to do loads of moves, they know how to do loads of really cool flips and posing and using weapons and tables and the environment. But if you ask them to tell a story of 2 or 4 guys competing in a competition, that's not what they do here. Fortunately for both teams, this was hidden very well with the fact that it was in a steel cage match. Nobody had to adhere to any rules, nobody had to figure out how you got to points, you just kept doing the spots, what's next, and then, etc, etc. It seems the steel cage match stipulation wasn't enough for the Young Bucks. Midget Jackson ended up getting a trainer with some thumbtacks stuck in, thrown over the top so he could use that. So then we just got more and more super kicks, just a lot of the same shit to be fair. But nobody sells it, there's no sense, there's rushing. It's a clusterfuck, but it's almost organised chaos when it is in this steel cage scenario. If it was in a usual tag team match, it would just look silly. We got a surprising victory when the Lucha Brothers won. I don't know how long they're going to have the belts for. I personally feel like someone like FTR should have them, unless you're just going to make some stupid Tornado Tag Championship for these guys, because they can't navigate their way through a normal tag match. So just let them have Tornado rules all the time and give them their own special belt and be done with it. I wanted to say at least there's a heel and face dynamic in this match as well, but because the Young Bucks can't help themselves for doing backflips and doing things that I can't personally do, and other people can't personally do, you end up hating them a little bit less because of this. And I've said before that people should just say no whenever the Young Bucks want to do any of their impressive little tricks. Unless they're baby faces, of course. But they're not, and they just have to do all the moves all the time and play both sides. And it'll get tiring eventually, especially when we've got the video game on its way. Once people get a chance to play the video game and they can do all the flips, all the weapons, all the daft shit that they want 24/7, and they don't have to wait certain times of the week to sit down and watch the Young Bucks do it, I think people are going to stop watching, or at least not be as invested. But we'll have to see. We've got the 21-person Battle Royale now, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, because once again, AEW just chuck people in front of the screen, in a ring, and just... it's a mess. You can't keep track of what's going on. The Royal Rumble concept, I understand, they're trying to avoid following it rule for rule. Oh, speaking of the rules, there you go. This is what we've got to deal with in Casino Battle Royale. I understand they're trying to avoid the Royal Rumble rules because they don't want to look like they're copying it. But the beauty of the Royal Rumble is that there's a run-in every minute, 2 minutes, whatever. You get to see that one person shine, come and wreck a ring full of people, and then it moves on to the next one. When AEW do their Casino Battle Royal, you have 5 people or 6 people coming in at once. It's like trying to listen to 5 songs at once, or eat 5 different things at once, or watch 5 different programs at once. You can't focus on the one thing, and the first 4 just mean nothing by the time the next ones come out. The main reason this match is worth watching, at least at the end, is because of Ruby Soho, aka Ruby Riott. She's now joined AEW. This is somebody that could have done being on their roster a long time ago. She's got a lot more experience than a lot of other lasses in AEW at the moment, and the division collectively would have increased in quality a lot more in this last 2 years with someone like Ruby around, and not just depending on Riho and Hikaru Shida. It came down to Ruby Soho and Thunder Rosa at the end, with a nice little tease on the apron of who was going to fall off, and eventually Soho won. Next up, we've got the final fight between MJF and Chris Jericho. If MJF wins, Chris Jericho must retire from wrestling. If Jericho wins, well, that's just shit all over MJF's push of 2 years. His undefeated streak's gone. You're not really passing the torch to a guy if you bury him or smother him with your love handles. But what do we know? Jericho knows best. There was nothing wrong with the match, but we've seen these two fight 4 times, well, more than that now, and I think everyone's getting a bit sick of it. Well, you know, apart from Chris Jericho. MJF did win the match at one point. Jericho had his foot on the rope and the referee didn't notice. And the good old mime artist Audrey Edwards had to bumble around to another referee going, "Oh, I didn't see that. What was going on? I was turned round. I'm fucking useless, me." And they restarted the match, and then eventually Jericho made MJF tap. So this isn't over, and it's going to keep going. It's nice to see that Jericho's enjoying some cosplay as well, although I'm not quite sure if he's going for a John Cena burial or a Triple H burial outfit. One of the two. I just saw the shovel. I thought a couple of weeks ago that this feud was over once they had the 5 labors of Jericho. I thought they'd picked the right guy to go over. I was obviously wrong. It continues. This was the main event of the night for a lot of people, CM Punk versus Darby Allin. First thing to report is CM Punk has long tights now. Don't know why that's relevant, but he has, and people were talking about it. A bit strange seeing him in without trunks, but meh. Two lads had a good match. Punk led Darby through a wrestling match, not just a spot fest, which was nice to see. I'm guessing that's what Punk's intention is in AEW. You can see a lot of people have a lot of raw talent, but they're just spot monkeys, so it's going to teach them a bit more about psychology and not just doing the moves. So I'm all on board for that. It seemed quite evident there was no communication between matches. It was between Chris Jericho and MJF. Jericho did the near 10 count on the outside where he almost didn't make it back in. And then on the match afterwards, they did the same thing with Darby Allin, getting knocked to the outside, and then he jumped back in the ring at 9.5. It's not the end of the world, but it's not as impressive if you see the same trick twice from two different people. There was a nice little moment where CM Punk avoided a coffin drop by just simply sitting up and grinning. And then the finish for the match had a nice exchange, where CM Punk eventually hit the go to sleep, and it was done. Sting came out and shook Punk's hand, and then Punk shook Darby Allin's hand, and everything looked good. Punk's got off his ring rust, he's made Darby look a bit better, and we've got to see what CM Punk looks like wrestling in long tights. Well, it's not the Big Show. Although Jim Ross kept calling him that on Dynamite last week. Every time Jim Ross said Paul White at the pay-per-view, he made a point of emphasising Paul White. Because as soon as he makes one little slip up, all the blue-haired whales and soy boys just threaten him online and give him shit. He don't deserve it. Anyway, this match wasn't really much. Just a piss break if he needed it. QT Marshall's minions surrounded the ring a few times and tried to distract Paul White, but that didn't work, and White eventually hit Marshall with a chokeslam and won. That's it. Main event time now, Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage for the AEW World Championship. Not just myself, because it was gone 4 o'clock in the morning, but the live crowd were tired. They were not excited for this at the beginning of the match. They did get into it eventually, but then they fell back out, and it was going on for a while. People didn't need to see it go on for this long, especially when it was evident that the destination was the whole focus and not the journey. Anyway, the fans picked back up once we got a near fall after a kill switch, but then Christian went to the top, Omega caught him, hit him with the one-wing fanboy, and retained his belt. After the match, the rest of the Elite came down and they beat up Christian and Jurassic Express, and then we were surprised with Adam Cole, baby. Cole came to the ring, looked like he was going to stop the massacre, but then just superkicked Jungle Boy and joined in anyway. And after this, Omega tried to steal the spotlight, but there was somebody else in the back ready to steal it back from him. That's right, Daniel Bryan has finally come to AEW, or Bryan Danielson now we should say, or American Dragon, or whatever he's going for. I would like to point out that I was wrong with something when I thought that Tony Khan would not be able to help himself by pumping the final countdown through the arena, though instead they actually relied on a bit of music that people were more familiar with. So well done there. Danielson came down, he helped clear the ring, stood tall with the babyfaces, and now this is a very clear signal that WWE need to pull their socks up and start taking things a lot more seriously. It's not just CM Punk that's an issue for him now. The whole roster just got an upgrade. Fortunately, when the roster gets an upgrade, that might mean some of the shit gets pushed out. So let's just go through a couple of quick things that we could do with getting rid of in the future. Yep, Ugly Bob, you're shit. You're noisy and attention-seeking. And I'm sick of seeing this already. But if it helps get rid of Cody and Brandy for a little bit, I'm all in favour of this. What we do need more of is Dan Lambert. I'm not quite sure where they're going with him, but I'm interested. His whole gimmick is telling the fans and the roster a few harsh truths. Very much what Jim Cornette's whole persona's revolved around in the last few years. Looking for more wrestling, less mud show. I'm hoping that CM Punk somehow aligns himself in this, because I don't see how CM Punk can remain a face for so long. People love him in the same way that they love Stone Cold Steve Austin for fighting the boss, for fighting the establishment. Punk may not work for WWE anymore, but he still works for a pretty big company. Tony Khan has more money than sense. Well, his dad has more money than sense, but Tony Khan has access to this. CM Punk just cheering for this rich kid with a swimming pool full of his dad's money doesn't give off the same vibe as Stone Cold Stunning Vince McMahon, or like when CM Punk would embarrass Vince McMahon on television. It's a bit too friendly, it's a bit too nice, and it's going to get old really quickly. Not just with me, but with the fans as well. So it might be something worth watching out for. I am looking forward to what's happening next. There's a lot of interesting characters joined AEW now. WWE really need to sort the game out in order to compete. Iron sharpens iron, we all know this. But as long as both companies get better, everybody wins. If people have only just turned up to the dance now and start thinking that AEW have absolutely destroyed WWE just because they've had one fantastic pay-per-view, or at least the ending of a fantastic pay-per-view, you're delusional. WWE, sadly, is going to be here forever, even if it's shit. If it's good, cool, it can stick around and no one should have a problem, but they're just painted by numbers and they're treading water, and we've just got this giant corporate machine that just keeps ticking over. That will not go just because somebody else can manage to get 1 to 1.5 million people to watch their show as well. You're not putting Vince out of business. And that's enough out of me for the time being. If you'd like to show some support, you can like and share this video. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow me on Twitter, @BluntDamage. You can risk it on Twitch, see if I'm about, Danny Blunt Damage. Or you can even buy me a coffee on Ko-fi @/DannyDamage. You can find other articles and videos that I've done on dannydamage.co.uk. You can read Another Week of Wrestling every Monday at geeksandgamers.com. And I also write That's Not Wrestling every Friday now. Thanks for watching, take it easy, and I'll see you next time.